Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the sunny Nature Folklore Sessions. It's 18th of July, 2021. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining me on our weekly time of exploring nature-centered folklore, connecting this within your favorite sanctuary space, and exploring inspired visions from your sanctuary through your poetry, writing, arts, craft, performance, and problem solving. And here we are, out inside at last in the sun. Ireland's very warm. I hope it's not too warm for you, hearing about the world heat at the moment. Here it's very pleasant. Where I am here, a breeze has started coming in, which is fantastic. It's blowing all the biting insects away. It's 21 degrees centigrade, which is just over 70 degrees Fahrenheit. But from what I see on Facebook, the rest of Ireland's having between 27 centigrade and 80 to 88 degrees. So we're the coolest place in Ireland, probably, and it's going to be very comfortable for this afternoon session. Now, interesting, looking behind me there, that white area, I'm already quite amused by that because we've actually got trees there, and they're very much in bloom, in blossom, loads of leaves. So that's providing nice shelter and hopefully not making me too dark for you watching. But looking through the screen here, looks like as if it's the gates to heaven or something. Anyway, I better get on because this is going to be a longish session. It's definitely going to go into extended session because it's a big subject. And this afternoon's theme is the folklore of the Aislings and the Green Man. And we got two video guests. We haven't got any live guests today, but we have Tony Cookson, very popular with a lot of you for his fantastic and unique style, I think, of storytelling. And we got Jane Gilgan, who's starting to become a nice regular, and she submitted something very lovely. So we got something from a man and from a woman, which is what I'm trying to balance today with the Aislings and the Green Man. Now, as I always commence with this, and this is actually very important this time, that these nature folklore sessions, excuse the wardrobe hiccup here, these nature folklore sessions, they are brought to you by subscribers. Thank goodness for you subscribers, and that's the link. And I'm actually operating even today with some of the equipment broken down, so I hope we get through. So any help you've got, any subscriptions you can help with, the details are there. Just a dollar, pound, or euro a month, or whatever you can do, it will help. Thank you very much, and I think most of you watching are probably subscribers already. So let's get on with the show here. Thank you for your support. And who we got here today? Let's see who's joined us on this brilliant day. We got Gary here, I see. Gary Brannigan. Hi, John and the Nature Folklore Gang. And our ever regular Donna Johnson, which I'm always glad to see here. Good morning. Still hot here in New Mexico. Not raining enough. I don't think we're going to get rain here. We go back to a regular Irish weather, I think, next weekend. So I'll be inside somewhere maybe next weekend. And it's lovely to see Siobhan McMahon. Lovely to see you. I hope everything's wonderful there. So we got, and then we got Alan. It's nearly all people in Ireland today, which is fantastic. Kildare, hello, how you doing? And from Florida, Sam Ashley, someone who would love to have this coolness, I'm sure. And you're all coming on now. You got Andrea here, Andrea Rose McDowell, also from Florida. And we got B. Smith, who's actually not saying a poem today, but she's going to see what Tony has to say, I think. Looking forward to seeing my Green Man. Of course. It's a lovely bit of a treat that we got there with Tony as well. So, as I say, on with the show. It's quite a long one. And it's one of my favorite subjects. It really continues on from the Create Poetry of a couple of Sundays ago. But we had Dana last week that sort of was wonderful. It was wonderful to have her, but so it gave us a bit of an interlude. So we're back into it. It's deeper. It's like the Create Poetry. We're really going into it quite intense. So today, as I say, the session theme is discovering the Aislings, excuse me, and the Green Man. And you've seen this. That's how I've been advertising this. And this is actually very fringe folklore. It's not really direct from the ancient tales. And someone's sending me a message. Does that mean you're not hearing me? I better check this, because last time I ignored it, it meant someone didn't. Oh, I've lost the message, unfortunately. Oh, I hope it wasn't. Okay. Right, okay. It's someone who... No, it wasn't so important. Sorry. Anyway, as I was saying, this is very fringe folklore. It's not direct from the ancient tales, but it's an imaginative interpretation. So it comes from the Celtic Revival, which I would say has been around for about 300 years, certainly intensely in the last 150 years. And some people call this the Celtic Romance years. But even so, Celtic Romance stories were all inspired and interpreted by ancient lore. And here's a famous one who did a great job of that, The Celtic Twilight by Yeats there. And I'm going to present some ancient lore this afternoon too. So an example of what I mean, a romantic interpretation, an example I like to use, I did this last year, so excuse me if I'm treading some familiar ground from last year, but I'm taking Adam, Eve and the apple as an example. And let's find some Adam and Eve. I think I've got some picture of Adam and Eve. There they are there. And there's an apple. But the ancient Bibles, they never actually mentioned an apple at all. Plenty of apples on that one. But the Renaissance sculptures, they were inspired by the Greek myths. And one of the main myths was of the Hesperides of Greece, the Greek myths there in the garden. Their garden was full of sacred apples, and I think I've got some of those Hesperides here. There they are, dancing around a fruit tree. I don't know if that's an apple tree or not, and I think I've got some sort of spelling for you for that. This is what I'm talking about. You may be familiar with them from the Greek mythology. So, as I go through the buttons to get to where I am, do ask questions this afternoon, and also share your ideas on what may be your Aislings or the Green Man as we go on through this. Now, when nature folklore sessions are broadcast outside, when the Sunday afternoon is dry and beautiful like today, I broadcast from the center of the Tree Labyrinth garden here, and I try not to be undressed. And I have a picture of the Tree Labyrinth garden when it was very first created, before the trees were about a foot tall. Oh no, this is the one that's just really about where I am right now. Anyway, broadcast center of the Tree Labyrinth garden here. And the origin of this Tree Labyrinth garden is an interpretation from the word that we know as labyrinth today. And that comes from two words, Labyrinth, Inthos, which is the place of the Labyrinth. Inthos is the place of the Labyrinth. But when people think of labyrinths, they might think of the Minoan story of Theseus, Ariadne, and who was the daughter of King Minos, and of course the underground labyrinth of Knossos in Crete, where, and I should have a picture of him here, the half bull, half man Minotaur. It's where he lived. There he is, and there's there. I'm losing my train here. And there's where Theseus is trying to track down the Minotaur there, and he's got the thread. I'll tell that story another time, the three gifts that Theseus had, which I think is fascinating in its own right. Anyway, the labyrinth is not the creation of circles. What is actually a labyrinth? It's a double-edged axe. One side dark, one side light. Usually, they're in museums around Crete. Here's one that's, well, they got one of each here, not one side of each. But anyway, that's in a museum in Crete, and the other side light. And here's one that's on a wall in a museum there. Even got the Minotaur there as well. But the labyrinth was curated by a queen, or a princess, or a high-ranking or highly regarded woman of the community, and there's a sort of a line drawing of that here. There she is. She's got two of them, maybe the two that were hanging on the wall earlier. Now, when she's there, notice she's raising up the labyrinth, and all the people around her were commanded to pay attention. Now, the path of the tree labyrinth garden here at Carracrory, and now this is where I get the picture. This was when it was first planted. How many years ago? 13 years ago, is it now? Something like that. And there it goes. There's a sort of an aerial shot of it at the time. And there you see, it's got the shape of the labyrinth. And you can see the shaft down there. Now, before visitors enter the tree labyrinth here, I challenge them to leave behind their familiarity of language. By that, I mean our language that we use that's really based heavily on scribed language, written language, typed language, printed language, and the language that uses symbols that are all chained together into words, sentences, text, story, you know the stuff. But the challenge I give to the people here is connect to the nature's language, nature's own language. It doesn't have letters, words, or sentences. It's all sensory, and nature's come back. It's all sensory, and we interpret nature's language through our senses, our sight, smell, touch, listening. To me, that's language that's being portrayed to us, and taste as well. And so it's not coming from our memory, from calibrated words, from reading from left to right or right to left, or from the bottom upwards, depending which language you write or what books you're reading from. It's a sensory language, and we interpret it. It's clear. Of course, all animals do that. That's the language they understand. And we do find it very hard, though we've got all these languages around the world. I mean, the vast language that the Chinese language is, must be the biggest dictionary in the world. We still can't find the words to describe that sensory experience. So really, to understand it and use it, I feel it's about letting go. And when we let go, it's like letting go of our kind of false chattering mind. So we're giving attention to mindfulness of imagery that comes into our mind, into our mind's eye. And that third eye is something that people talk about, isn't it? The mind's eye, the third eye. And I think I've got something on that. There you go. I'm going to take a bit of a drink for that. Anyway, move on. Interpretation, really, from all that, as I say, the mind's eye, from your mindfulness, it's through holding on to that imagery, that sensory imagery. It's like a synthesis, isn't it? We get all these senses and we imagine things, and suddenly this image comes before us and it evolves. I know as a storyteller, I tend to do this. I stand somewhere, if it's a well or a cave or whatever. I've got sort of background knowledge of the ancient story, but there's no letting go. There's a kind of sense of place. And suddenly, everything is as if, to me, it's like being transported a couple of thousand years back. And it's all that's going around me. So when I've got a group of visitors, I end up telling a story of what's going on in my mind there. And so, you do that through letting go. You use the language of nature through your mind's eye. Forget about memorizing the books. And this is what people remember, the emotional stuff. If you talk to people a quote from a book, 2 minutes later, not even a minute, they've probably forgotten about it because something has happened that's distracting them. It might be a bee, it might be a bird, it might be a breath of wind, it might be a sound. All that stuff impacts when you try and tell the story. And it's the stuff that impacts them then that I feel is what people remember. And if you integrate that from your own senses, it becomes part of that memory, I believe. Anyway, as I say, it's much deeper than poetry, isn't it? So in my that mind's eye, I think it's far clearer to us than anything we can try to translate into words or scribed language. And of course, this is the foundation for our faith, isn't it? Our faith is built up on imagery. We read something, we might read the Torah, the Bible, Quran, and you read those words, but if you've got faith, suddenly those words come alive and you got your story and you put your own life experience into it. Now, so when we put faith into it, a very common one, and we get this here in the tree labyrinth, is the, if I can get to pictures, sluggish here, is the guardian angel. That's a common one. There we go. It's a bit vague, but there we go. A lovely guardian angel image. Otherwise, it could be a spirit guide, an animal totem, a bird totem, or what your image of the she or fae happens to be. Or even a return to the invisible guiding friend from childhood. And you'll be familiar with this one. But that's the best I could come up with, a picture of an invisible friend. Perhaps something from Moon Boy. Anyway, through letting go of our chattering mind and exploring our connection and communication with things, and slowly returning back to our calibrated, scribable language, because we want to write about these things, don't we? A lot of us do. No, B does. So we arrive back at our scribed language with a remarkable new clarity and a new wisdom. And we also get that response, and that you've all been there. I know when we're children, we do this a lot. Suddenly, it all comes into our mind, and there's this whole reaction. Wow, I now get it. And that's when I think the vision has solved. And that's why I say at the beginning of Nature Folklore that it's very good from your sanctuary, not only for your poetry and your art, but also your problem solving, because that whole peace and mindfulness, suddenly everything is synthesized and wow, I now get it. So when we experience this beautiful transition, as I say, I recommend and encourage indulgence in the wonderful craft of expression that we call poetry. And our poetry may not be expressed, of course, through words. Some people will call themselves poets, and what they do, they doodle, they do drawings, they do painting, they might do dance movements, or start playing music, composing music, and then eventually put some words, a bit of poetry to the music. But for this session, as I cover the other subjects in other sessions, I'm going to stick to written and spoken poetry. And poetry can be spontaneous and free. Don't be afraid to do that. We can drop all cares of abiding to grammar, structure, spelling, and punctuation. That's why I love it, because when I was at school, there was 2 exams. There was English literature and there was grammar. And immediately I got the top grade in literature, but I took the grammar 3 times and got the bottom grade every time. So I love poetry because it doesn't matter if I fail grammar. It's poetry. You can do what you like. You can structure it how you like. Anyway, I encourage that first draft. That first draft where you're struggling from your mind's eye to actually get it into words. Let it be as naked and as free as possible. And it's, as I say, the first draft of poetry is really a wordy doodle. And I got someone's wordy doodle here. That's the sort of thing I think I got in mind. I love that one. That's really a doodle, isn't it? And we can craft that later into something else that's maybe a poem that's suitable for a book or whatever we want to do with it. Now, after that winding introduction to the space, intent, and activity that I encourage within this tree labyrinth and also on these sessions, let's bring the Ashling now into the stage. But first of all, let's see what you've had to say. If I can get my screen back. There we go. You've got a few words here. Nice weather. Who's saying that? Oh, yeah, Alan there. Very nice, Gary. And Gary's saying something, and I can't get Gary up. There you go. I can hear you fine. Good. Hello, John from Florida. I can hear you fine. Good. I hope it's not too loud for you. So that's fantastic. Thanks for reminding that. So, yeah, any questions you've got on what I've just said? But anyway, I'm getting on to the first of the sort of subjects. Here we have the Aislings. And I love one description of an Aisling is it being a dream vision poem. Dream vision poem, and I should have someone who's, let's see, dream vision poem. That'll up to it. We'll have that. That's a lovely dream vision poem picture. I'll bring that one up. Let's see. As I say, sorry for my dragging around because I'm not using a mouse. I'm kind of improvising here to try and get around the place. So that wasn't it. So excuse if it takes me a few seconds rather than the instant transition that I should be professionally doing. Anyway, a huge amount of folklore, the so-called Celtic mythology that we share today, it seems to have come from Renaissance years of the 17th century and the Celtic Romance years of the 18th century. And I got something on this. There we go, Celtic Renaissance. That's an example of a book that was really retold. And really, if you look into that story, it's very much like Dermot and Grania. But in the Renaissance years, out came Tristan and Isolde. So that's kind of an example. Even the so-called ancient texts we revere often and rewrite copies. And here's something from the 19th century. That's the sort of thing that came out. And they really got people together. People would get these magazines. The printing industry was just starting to come into vogue. People were getting this stuff, and then they were meeting in their little covens in their groups to reenact the stuff that they would read in little magazines and broadsheets like this. So, as I say, that all came from this new age of printing. And so Celtic Romance came from trying to reenact all these fragments of stuff that people were getting. It was a lovely hobby. They didn't have television and stuff like that. They didn't have Netflix. So it's great. And it still is great today to get together with some people. I used to do reenactments. I think I started about 6 years old. I used to get friends together. I'd go to a place on a survey map, and I'd pick up a story from a farmer or people nearby, and I get together with friends. Look, I heard this story. Let's get together and let's see if we can make sense of this. And funnily enough, my old school chums, they remember more than me about it, but I did that right through my teens, right through to my first job too. Anyway, to guarantee sales of these new printed products of the 19th century, it brought scribed language into the hands of everyone, really, for the first time. And tea, of course, was getting into the hands of everyone. So it wasn't just the scholared elite anymore. It wasn't just scribed books for the elite, and I think I've got an elite person here. I thought I had an elite person I wanted to show. There you go. There's a nice no, that's not an elite person, that's an Aisling. Oh, there's an elite person there. All right, there you go. Being very elite with a bit of scribing. Anyway, there was also I've lost her again. Oh goodness. I'm gonna have to get a mouse. I need a mouse. Sorry. Right, here we go. No, I'm losing it. I'm not getting any movement. Sorry, give me a second or two. It's hard being mouseless. The cat got it. Anyway, there was also a bit of revival of Renaissance and Celtic Romance during the Guru years. I remember those well during the 70s and 80s, places like Glastonbury and Bath and so forth, which was quite funny. It was the same old stuff that they probably got around with. in earlier years, early 20th century. Alfred Watkins and Old Straight Track got people going. And of course, John Michelle was the thing, wasn't he, in the 70s, and View Over Atlantis. And this, people expanded that when they started visiting places. And it wasn't just the old Celtic-y type of things. Out came a splash or two of white sage, smudging, and petunia oil, all that sort of integrated in the 70s and 80s. And then there seemed to be another revival in the .com, where people were setting up these websites and blogs claiming that they were the authority on the old stories and the old sacred text, when really they were just reproducing stuff from the Romance years. And now, of course, we got the exponential flood of the fusion interpretations of the last 12 years through Facebook and Twitter, maybe, and social media generally. So now anything that's pre-Renaissance, it seems to be regarded as being too old to be traditional. So there's some Renaissance girls, and try it. Actually, I've done this. Take a song that's or a story that's before the mid-17th century, and see what the traditional purists say. I've had that. Oh, that's too old to be traditional. Anyway, with the Aislings tradition, we're going to look at this lad here, Igor O'Reilly. Igor O'Reilly, if I can get his spelling up. I want to get the spelling up for you. There he is. And we're just going to keep it simple. I'm going to call him Igor O'Reilly from now on. But Igor O'Reilly, there he is. And very much the lad known for kind of starting the Aisling genre. And Egan was regarded as a man who got the tradition going. And the genre it starts with a poet meeting a very beautiful woman. And I'm going to look for a very beautiful woman in the photographs here. And there we go. That's what I had earlier. I just love that one anyway. Of course, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And maybe in the form of a fairy or a she, goddess, or even a ghost-like woman, something like that. That could be the Aisling that comes to the mind eye for men anyway. And she is met while a man is in a trance, in meditation, contemplation, or comes to the male in sleep. And I say man, and indeed it's the same for a woman who's passionately attracted to other women as well. And this otherworldly woman image of nature, combined with the ultimate connection to love, and I must bring this one up. There you go. You'll be familiar with that probably. It's said that Egan explained his beautiful woman vision presence as being a reflection and connection to the purest of love and beauty. It was a reflection and connection to love and beauty that morphs men into becoming and living as a poet. So when visitors enter into our tree labyrinth and flow along the labyrinthos paths that's here, there we go. There's someone flowing along the paths there. To me, this is also a space for meeting the Aisling, and it's offered to all people who visit here. Obviously been difficult under the COVID, but women may relate more to the spirit of the Green Man, and that's why I'm going to include this soon. Or similarly to the Green Man, the fairy lover. And I'm going to explore both of them very soon. But unfortunately, Egan was overwhelmed with the obsessive passion that he was locked into with the Aisling experience. And it's as if he believed that the Aisling's beauty and perfection of softness and love made all the expression of human language, poetry, and song, no matter how much he tried, it was suddenly to him all inadequate. He just couldn't express it, as I was explaining later. That whole mind's eye, he just couldn't get it into the words. And for Egan, these arts never express purity and perfection like something like this. So Egan O'Reilly, he lived a time of... He lived actually at a time when in Ireland it was fairly unpleasant anyway. It was cruel politically and socially. There was so much upheaval when he was living here. And of course, he didn't want to live the days. He wanted to spend the night with this woman that came to him in the night. And this was also a time when the Irish language was being crushed in his days. So the traditions of music, song, poetry, and stories expressed from bardic passions are all being suppressed as well. So it was almost the death of bardic tradition that was perhaps held on by a thread by this man. There he is. And Turlo Corolini, various pronunciations. But that's another explained story, and I'm going to tell that another day. But Egan's own life, he was high in social status as a poet amongst the Gaelic community. But of course, this was what being suppressed. The Gaelic community was being banished. And he went from being a respected poet amongst the hierarchy of the Gaelic society to becoming a destitute pauper. And it seemed that the miracle of Egan overcoming his demoralized, reduced status life was just impossible. But it was the sweet, calming, and inspiring enchantment of the woman, the beautiful woman that sang and even played harp for him through the night. And there we go. Bring those two women back, because I should have had a picture of Claire. No, it's not coming back. There we go. There they go. There's one woman with a harp there anyway. And then these images, her voice, her harp music, and herself, as he tried to preserve them even in the night, he may wake up, he just couldn't hold on to them. He just couldn't preserve it. And it was just like, we all do this, don't we? We wake up from beautiful experience, a prophetic dream, and then we barely remember any of it. And it's so frustrating. Even if we try to go, I do this, I'm sure you do. You go back to sleep to try and continue the dream. I don't want to wake up yet. I want to be back in that dream to get more clarity and more sense of it. Sometimes it works. But anyway, Egan, he fell obsessively in love with his perfect woman of the night. I'll bring that one back up again. There's the woman of the night, and there's that lad who's obsessed. That's from Book of Kells, of course. And through the day, he refused to eat or drink or take any part of any activities during the day. He just wanted the night to come for this woman to come back to him. And he believed he could only live for the night, because this is when the woman would return to him. There's three women there. That one, he's very lucky. But sadly, Egan's obsession for the night and the lack of food, excess stress, and he went through a melancholy in the day. It killed him. Sadly, it killed him as a young man. But within the twilight between his blessed night and his haunted day, Egan did write a lot of fantastic poetry, of his profound dreams, visions, as best as he could. They were all in Irish, they're all in Gaelic, but they're preserved. Now I ask, I say, people coming into the tree labyrinth here, I say, do the same thing. Use your mind eye to sense everything and create your poetry. And of course, I don't want everyone leaving here and becoming like Igor O'Reilly and into a mass desperation of melancholy. How can we do this? How can we take these dream visions and let them energize us rather than let them fade us away? So, as I mentioned, in the Celtic Romance revival, the traditions of telling folklore, there's a man here. This is how we imagine the bard, or the Celtic. There's the Celtic romantic version of what a wild bard looked like, and they were new interpretations through this Romance time, repackaged from fragments of ancient traditions and folklore. And there's an older Irish tradition. If you want to go back into the ancient folklore, this is the Imbas Forestney. It's I get this, I'll give you the spelling of this. I should have it somewhere. No, we're not mousing. We're stuck. Sorry about this again. Yeah, we got it again. There we go. That's Frost now. And bluntly, I describe this as Celtic clairvoyance. Is the best way I come across this. It's clairvoyance, divination, prophecy, whichever way you like to translate this. And that's there we go. That's a nice image, I think, to saw that. Bardic clairvoyance, divination, and prophecy. And to me, this follows the. It does follow the folklore of the Imbus forest name, and it's about letting ourselves go, letting ourselves loose. Oh, that's here we go. I don't know why that's come up. That shouldn't come up yet. Anyway, you got the idea. I don't know why he's come up. That's a bit later on. Okay, I'm going to knock him off. That picture shouldn't have come up. He's coming back. No matter how much I try to get rid of him there. Right, that's another bit that's coming up shortly. But from the academia chains of scribe language and reconnecting with our denied, we deny, don't we? We deny the sensory language of life and nature. The chattering mind, as I was saying, that seems to take over. For some reason, that's all words, and I think we let that take over too much. And let's put this into the perspective. Get back into this is the state we should be in, isn't it? And that's in that situation. That's where you get the sensory time, and I think that's really very much something like this. It's a wellspring of prophecy. I wish I had a holy well up for that one, anyway. But getting into something like that, I believe that's what opens us up to our prophecy and our abilities. And so we have the imbus, the means of inspiration that becomes our sacred prophetic inspiration. I'm not sure why that's come up, but we accept that imbus as through inner imagery and nature spirits. That's a picture of the sheaf, some other world guide. So if I can get the right pictures up for that, the idea, there we go. In that sort of situation, that's where the mind eye seems to work. And then it might cause some person like that. That's what I'm trying to say. I hope you got the gist of that one. But the enchantment from this imagery can help us to feel centered. There's another aerial shot a bit later on of this tree labyrinth. And we flow into the second part, the Frosne, which is the illumination. And here's someone here who was really full of stories after going around the tree labyrinth here. So it seems some ancient practitioners believed the state of imbus Frosne could not be achieved without without depriving our senses. And you get this from shamans and the like. They kind of teach the depriving of senses through the consumption of substances that induce a dreamlike state. But I believe, from my own experience, I had experience of visitors coming here using a tree labyrinth. We don't need to do that. We don't need to induce artificially. We don't need to use specific herbs or mushrooms to get into a state. We can actually do it for ourselves as we are. And so I believe in the sensory amplification rather than sensory deprivation. And so I always hope that my guided introduction before people enter this tree labyrinth here do get a sensory connection, because this is what I try to mentor when they arrive. But this is not going to happen unless you have personal trust. It needs trust to let that mind eye open and get that sensory reaction. And I also encourage a third part of the tree labyrinth walk. And this is to encourage and embrace what Egan perhaps failed to do there. And that is embrace the light, as a lot of the New Age people say. The light being the new prophecy of our present and our presence and what's going on. And that's the divine unconditional state that we let ourselves go and be amongst, meaning it's a unity with around us. And to me, that is the most nutritious, I suppose. I'm trying to find the right word. It's the full, wholesome Aisling experience when we allow that. So rather than trying to live with an obsession or possession, like Egan did then, perhaps Imbos Frosny should be extended to become Imbos Frosny Solia. Imbos Frosny Solia. I think I've tried to spell that here. You might be able to understand it if I can get that out in the words. There we go. There it is there. So that's it. We got there you go. You got the vision, you got the illumination, and then you got the understanding, you got the prophecy just from those three words. So sadly, as I say, Igor O'Reilly, Aisling tradition, it didn't last very long. It was attempted by several poets, maybe lasted 30 to 50 years as a genre of poetry. But then the Aisling morphed into a satirical image. And through the satire, it was then joked that a woman, to become perfect, she would have to become incredibly obsessed herself by trying to achieve and preserve her looks and manners and sustaining her looks and manners so that she is forever the beautiful woman. And what a lot of pressure that is. And even today, if a woman seems to fuss about her looks, there's someone nearby might say, "Ha, haven't you been the Aisling today?" So that's how it's got bent, unfortunately. But what about the times before the days of Igor O'Reilly and his enchanting Aisling? What is there in the ancient lore? Well, I've got some pictures up. There was a woman known as the Spheven. If I can get her spelling up. There she goes. Spheven, there you go. Or Spheven. She's a loving spell enchanted woman. And hopefully I've got a bit of a picture up of her somewhere as an example of an enchanting woman. Let's try this one. There we go. There's a sort of artist impression of one anyway, a Shrevein. But in the older edition, she was not always young and perfectly beautiful. She could be an old hag with an infectious, luring sparkle in the wisdom of her eyes. Someone like this. There you go. Sparkler in her eyes there. There you go. And the Shreven is told of being a she-woman that also mourned along with people during the cruel and melancholy times that the Irish people went through. But she also inspired them with joy from their dreaming she would guide them into awakening them into elements of their life, because no matter how bad things are, there's always something that we can get joy from, something that we can laugh about. And this is what the Shreven spirit, she's like the she, we have the Ben she, so she is a Shreven spirit. Job was to bring us joy, the spirit that brought joy out of intense melancholy, so that we could continue to feel love and feel more calm. And I briefly referred to Turlough O'Carolan. Let's bring up a picture of him again, because he was a blind harper bard, and for him, it meant all day and all night was dark from being blind. And he may have been forever walking and living with the Aisling, even with Shvivin. And in addition to being a famous composer and performer of the great lord houses of Ireland, he also visited the peasant cottages. And within these rural cottages, he would donate some of his earnings to them to help them along. And at the same time, his presence and performing for them, he was there to uplift them out of their melancholy. And there's a story I'm going to have to tell in the Nature Folklore session, because there's a beautiful story of where he walked from Fermanagh back to where he lived near Lochmela, And anyway, that's for another time. So returning to the Aisling story, the beautiful woman entering into the dream of Igor O'Reilly. This is of a woman whose spirit is guiding a human man. And I've not even touched on the related tradition of men burning sticks of rowan to call upon women like Aislings to calm and guide them when they're in council and to prevent war. But now I'm going to move in this around, and it's exploring the women with male spirit guides. And of course, this is where we get onto the Green Man. But before that, I've spoken for quite a while, and let's see what you've been saying. Elizabeth Flynn, thank goodness for the art of lilting. It keeps Jews alive. That's a very good point. Thanks for bringing that up. Claire, lovely. Thanks for joining us, Kate. And I'm really enjoying everything. Okay. Now, I hope Bee's here because, as I say, we've got Tony Cookson with a story. And wonderful, and this is certainly a highlight. So I think I've got Tony lined up here. Tony, as you're familiar, he has his very unique style of storytelling. It's been fascinating to see how he's developed that, even after I've known him, was it 13, 14 years? And it's quite fascinating. And it really is. I've been talking about the Aisling, and you'll see here Tony is very much into the Aisling style. So I'm not going to talk anymore of that. I'm just going to play Tony for your own enchanting experience and entertaining. So Tony Cookson, everyone, here he is.
This is a story written for my friend John Wilmot, who for me is a man of vision and who pours that vision into the world. So let me share this story. It is called The Way of Aisling. The Way of Aisling. Once upon a time, before time ever was, there was a place of twixt and in between. This was a place 1.5 miles from nowhere, the nowhere that is everywhere. And the name of this place, it is called Chocnaco Aisling, the house of shared vision. And in this house of shared vision, Chocnaco Aisling, there lives an old Shaughnessy and a dangerous old woman. The Shaughnessy, the storyteller, spends time exploring what it means to grow bolder, not older, living twixt and in between the world of time and the timeless. And he spends his time in the world beyond time, learning the art of saging, not aging. The dangerous old woman, well, she loves more than anything to dress in the colour purple. And she loves to run her curled walking stick along all the wrought iron railings, just because she can. And each walk in the world of time in a different way, and both in the same way. Such is the way of Aisling. In the way of Aisling, each must learn it's your road and yours alone. And others may walk it with you, but no one can walk it for you. The old Shaughnessy, he walks the lanes around Chocnaco Aisling, living with a full moon in each eye, speaking that sweet moon language that every other eye in the world is longing to hear. He walks the way of Aislings, inviting the vision of that which would light up the darkness. Now the dangerous old woman, she is a poet. She does the work of the poet, to pour light into a cup and raise it to nourish the holy parched mouths of those who would listen. And the shared vision of the Shanashi and poet is the vision of awakening to the knowing of what has been envisaged for all. This is seeing with the eyes of the heart, where vision opens to vast other worlds beyond simply having the time of your life in the world of time. At the house of shared vision there is a field. It is a field entered through the gateless gate. A field out beyond the ideas of right doing and wrong doing. A bright field. A field where you lie down in the grass and invite the knowing of the soul. Where the world is too full to talk about, and where the phrase each other doesn't make sense. In the way of Aislings, you honor the heart's longing to connect, living with a full moon in each eye, speaking that language of the sweet moon that every other eye in the world is longing to hear, lighting up the darkness with a vision for your time, flowing through you from that which is beyond time. It is the way of Aislings, flowing through you as a seer and knower of the deep heart's core, where you know that you are blessed and can bless. And then you really know. Then you really see, and is told in all visionary stories that point the way of Aislings, living happily ever after is no fairy tale. So let it be so for you. Let it be so for all. Let it be so for you. Let it be so for all. Thank you for listening.
So there we have Tony for you. Absolutely wonderful. And well, there we got a bit of the enchantment of both the Aisling by the Green Man himself, in a way. And I trust that you enjoyed that, and we'll move you out of your enchantment. It's lovely. We're well overdue for having a bit of Tony on, and I hope we will get him back on very soon. So let's move on with the enchantment of the Green Man itself. And though seemingly ancient, the term Green Man, believe it or not, is quite modern. And it dates back to 1880. There's actually a year when the Green Man was invented. And this was when a lady, Ragland Julia Somerset, who actually lived in Gloucestershire, and I'll bring up, there she is, Lady Ragland Julia Somerset from Gloucestershire. And she wrote an article that became very famous. And Julia Somerset was really a very prolific writer, and I think I got a picture of her here somewhere. Where is she? There she is. There's Julia Somerset there. And but what she was doing, she juggled with her imagination. She juggled with the May trickster, Jack in the Green. And do I have a Jack in the Green? Not at the moment. But she juggled the Jack in the Green, which is really a English Welsh story, along with the gargoyles. You see these when you go into medieval ruins, and very common, carved into the walls and pillars of medieval monastic abbeys, especially late medieval. And you may have seen them, or at least pictures of them. There's another one here. And they have men with branches and leaves coming out their hair. And sometimes they have branches coming out their faces and ears. And so this is what Julia Somerset got into her mind's eye, this whole idea of Jack in the Green. And she thought of Jack in the Green when she saw these gargoyles, and so the idea of the Green Man came together, and she got it into her article in 1888. And I'm going to take a break here at that point to bring our other guest on. Here's a poem by Jane Gilgan, and this is her actual thoughts of the Green Man. Before I get into much more of this, so ladies and gentlemen, here's Jane Gilgan.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Jane Gilgan. I'm in Newport, Rhode Island, United States. I'll be in Ireland next Thursday. I'm also hoping that maybe I can do a little bit of work around the cottage, because I've been doing a lot of work in Rhode Island on the landscape. Well, I was just delighted when John texted me and said that he was having a celebration of the Green Man tomorrow. And so he invited me to participate, and I thought, okay, now what? You know, I'm an English major, so I remembered right away Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and so I did a lot of reading about Green Men and Green Knights, etc. And then I just decided to write a little tiny poem, and it's called The Green Ones. They are dancing light, soft on the moss, one with the leaves, the trees, the fae. They breathe in and out and in. They shine, quiver, give, receive. The dancing green ones are life within and without, all around, surround. No need for signs, acknowledgement. Everything is already. Soft, kin. The sun shines on the leaves. The leaves murmur in the breeze. Frogs jump off stones into the woodland ponds. Herons stand on the rocks, silent, unruffled. The green ones touch, kiss, love. All is being.
Short and lovely, and that's Jane Gilgan. There we go. And as I say, I'm going into stuff that's much older than the Green Man. And whilst I was going through that, I've actually found an image of a Green Man somewhere. If I can actually poke him up for you. There we go. There's one image of Jack in the Green. There's Jack in the Green. It's an older tradition than the Green Man. And he exists more around the UK, barely at all in Ireland, maybe in Wexford, that's about it. But he's subtly described as a symbol of the new birth of spring and of May mating and fertility, and this is round May time, Beltane time, and this also has an association with lunacy coming up as well. But and I'm going to talk more about that because the next 4 weeks is going to be on lunacy things, so I'm not going to really go in that way. But just to say that Jack's tradition is that of the hawthorn tree and the scent of the white hawthorn. And it's said, as I've said on past sessions, the white hawthorn blossom rouses the lusts of wombs of women, and Jack is then said to enchant and lure the women to his bed of hawthorn that is made in the woods. And from their copulation and conception, the woman is said to give birth to a fairy person that's born as a human. So Jack in the Green is really an image of a story of the tradition of the wild hunt, which I explain on other sessions. And this was a way in the past because people didn't travel like they do now. They were stuck in their villages. So, of course, the gene pool was quite limited. So they had this thing, the wild hunt, which meant that ancestry didn't go up a straight pole. Anyway, spreading the genes, and Jack in the Green was responsible for spreading the genes, all part of that tradition and imagery. But describe more, use your imagination on that one. But back to the tree men, the gargoyles, and they're around Ireland too. Boyle Abbey, right near here, about 10 kilometers away, 8 miles away. We got, there he is there. It's quite hidden. If you go around the gargoyles and the designs, it takes a while until you actually find this one. The giveaway is the nostrils there. And that's what most of the inscriptions look like, is like that. But you'll suddenly come across this. See the difference? You know, most of the pillars have got that, but there's one that has this character. Absolutely fascinating. And as a medieval relics mason myself a while back on my own, I was told by my very senior foreman tales of how the masons building the monastic properties were a very different culture to the monastic people themselves. And when I've spoken about this, people have often jumped in and said, oh, they were pagan. But those masons were not as simply defined as that. And in those days, those masons and people of those days probably had no idea what pagan was anyway. And the masons would carve images, they would carve stuff inspired by this guy. And this carving had a purpose. So they were green men before they were called green men. And that's what I'm trying to put across here. And I was told that the tree men were a kind of warning to the monks and abbots, because the monks and the abbots and the masons themselves, under their orders, would have had to have removed trees, plants. They had to create a building site to construct the abbey and the buildings. So several trees, several plants, they would have had to have been cleared to construct the abbey and other support buildings like the kitchen, etc., and homes for the community. And all this was wiping away stuff from nature. And there's that question that's lingering, which is more sacred, the trees that were wiped away or the abbey building that was put there on that space. So the construction of the abbey building and walls would have also moved the residency of birds, wildlife. They would have had to move out too. So I was told that these gargoyles, that they were actually placed there by the masons more as a warning to be careful of how far they developed these constructions, because they were actually an intrusion. And do not allow their buildings and faith that they practiced within them to detach them from the trees, plants, creatures, and all things the spirit of nature flows through them. Because even in the abbey and around, they're celebrating the seasons and giving gratitude. So don't detach from that. And that's what it said. That's what my boss said anyway. That he rang, the purpose of the gargoyles was to remind that nature's watching. I know it's a bit of a new agey explanation, and but something on that level was what I meant. But with Julia Somerset, Lady Ragland's Green Man article, are only known. I've got another picture of her. Here we go. There's Julia Somerset again. It was her only known article. Was a Green Man was the only one that was known. It said that she did others, but she just couldn't get publishers to take them on. But this one that she written on the Green Man, it actually went viral at the time. And say she imagined the stone gargoyles coming alive, becoming Jack in the Green with all the mischief in May around Beltner. And this, though written in 1880, her article went viral through folklore journals for the next 3 to 5 years, maybe up to 10 years. So people were getting together and discussing, what is this Green Man? What is this nature spirit? Because people were setting themselves up as druids and so forth, and liking the stone circles, but also, what role does the Green Man have in all this? So this was a revival of that time, thanks to Julia's article. And people started to relate to these medieval gargoyle figures. And that's when these gargoyle figures really became known as the Green Man. Let's bring you one more up of that. There we go. This is another Green Man for you. But while many imagine there's a Green Man, actually goes way back into folklore history, various guises, and they all celebrate the same male mating fertile spirit in nature. And as I say, I brought one picture up far too early in Robin Hood. Robin Hood's one of them. And Robin Hood's always given me a huge fascination. And I think I'm going to try and find that picture that I brought up by mistake before. Maybe it's well and truly lost. No, I better get. Is that him? There he is. There we go. Big fascination, because that picture I just showed you, I've got another bit of a story for him. Because look at that red hood there. Because around the world, snakes, serpents, and dragons are all symbolized as being the flow of nature. And I'm going to be covering these over really the upcoming Lunas ones. 2 of those weeks are going to be covering that kind of legend. But these serpents are said to create the winding furrows where the water and the rivers flow. And folklore around the world also tells that when the earth, its animals, and its people are abused, remember I was mentioning about the gargoyles as a warning on these monastic people, careful how far you go with the clearances in these buildings. You know, they were looking out for possible abuse. Please balance this all in with it. But where the earth has animals and people that are abused, it's said that a snake appears among the people wearing a hood and looking like a human being. Hindu stories are full of this. African stories are full of it. And this snake, dressed in a hood as a person, would then come up to the abusers, and the head would come out and would bite them and put venom into them. Or fire would come out. So that's why the red hood, the fire would come out. So the snake would appear among the people wearing a hood, as I say, looking like a person. And from this, I do believe this is where we got this Robin Hood tradition. And I bet you didn't know that one, did you? And I'm trying to get... there he is. There he is in the red hood. It's an old Victorian print there. And I assume he's with a very stern headmistress, Maid Marian there. So there we go. It's a red hood, the fiery one wearing the red hood. And of course, Robin is said to come from the name of Rory, which is also a name, especially in Ireland, in Scotland. Rory, it describes a person who's red hair, fiery. So they reckon Robin came from Rory. Now, another possible origin of the Robin name is from Oberon, the king of the fairies. Do I have an Oberon picture? No, I've lost Oberon. Okay. And the Ob, that's a symbol of Oberon in a way. The Ob of the Oberon describes a snake or a serpent. So even the name of Oberon has got the snake included in his words. So the king of the fairies has a snake's head. How about that one? So Oberon's name origin seems very uncertain. I'm not sure if it came over to Ireland via the Saxons or early medieval times, or whether Oberon came here via the Normans during the late medieval times. But Oberon seems to have an old tradition amongst the Norse, the Germanic, and the French. And it's from Oberon that maybe the Robin Hood came. And maybe this was inspired by the Hindu and Asian stories of the snake, red hooded snake head that people thought was a human. Now, Robin becoming in love with Marian is also an incredible, amazing coincidence as well. And let's see, there he is with Marian there. Because within the abbeys, where there's a green man gargoyle, where their presence, often originally there was a Mary or a Marian figure that was very nearby. And within folklore, I often comment how the land care is the work of the goddess, such as Breda, Ariel, Onya, Gob, Boing. And with the sea, it has its gods, Magmanan, Neptune, Poseidon. But within the Green Man-related folklore, there's a sort of reverse. We have the serpents. We got Jack in the Green. We got John Barleycorn, Herne the Hunter, Doida, Dagda, and even legends about Cernunnos. And they meet hags by the water. They meet mermaids. They meet sirens, selkies. And the water itself, whether it's seawater or fresh water, was always collectively known as Mare, Mer. So has Mer or Mare become Mary or Marian? And Robin Hood, the serpent, fell in love with the lady of the water. Just like here. I couldn't resist that one. I actually had some excellent Robin Hood pictures that seem to have vanished on me, which is a great shame because I had... yeah, never mind. I had John Cleese as Robin Hood, which I wanted to show, but he's vanished. Anyway, in folklore around the world, a man's penis is known as a serpent, and the woman's womb is the lake. And also inside that womb lake is the fire, the phylactery, where conception happens. And the folklore often tells us of the serpent that remains in the heart of everything that's born. So today it seems that the Green Man image has become an icon for respect of our beautiful landscapes and its bounty of births and harvests of nature, especially through Lunacy coming up. And the harvest then, whether they're wild from our foraging or cultivated, there's that great gratitude of that first harvest. Today we hold reverence to the Green Man, along with the Sheila icon, that's more relevant to the wombs of the water underworld, and say going back to the Robin Hood and Marian, the unity there. So together I feel they're a wonderful nature folklore that unifies championship for the current environmental and population challenges we have today. Now, before I go away from the imagery and spirit of the Green Man, I must flow into what I feel is perhaps its more ancient origin that Lady Ragland somehow didn't touch on. And this is the folklore of the Gainconna, the Jonconna, or Gabconna. I'll give you all those spellings. I've got those up somewhere. And this is the fairy lover. The fairy lover, where is the different species? There you go. So the different spellings there of that. So she didn't really cover this. And anyway, I'm going to talk about the fairy lover. Let's see what you were saying so far before we go on to the fairy lover. My sister just gave me with a book of the Gargoyles and Green Man pieces in Des Moines, Iowa. Who knew? The author signed, they're watching you. There you go. Hopefully that was a decent explanation. Love the stories of the Green Man. And there's B. It sounds like you had a very wise boss. Anthony McKechnie was absolutely amazing. I've spoken to him on these show before, but he was an amazing man. He was actually an apprentice on Iona in the 1930s when they were rebuilding the ruins. to become a retreat place for the underprivileged in Glasgow. So he, in his teens, he was an apprentice there. So he picked up the Iona stories from the folklore, from the Masons, got the whole Mason culture. And that's where I really learned about the Ogham, because it was Iona at that time was very full of the stories of how the Gaels, the people of the forest, which I covered last week, I think, or the week before, and how they met up with the Picts. And of course, the Picts had their engravings and their symbols, and how the Ogham come together there. Anyway, I'll bring that up another Sunday. I do the stories of the Ogham. The stories from Iona is another separate. He was an amazing man. And obviously a very fluent Gaelic speaker as well. Kate's here as well. Brilliant. Anyway, I better get on with the fairy lover here, because this is very much a nice part of the Green Man story. Love talker, fairy lover. And funnily enough, I learned some of this from Tony Cookson as well. He was a great reminder to me, and I think he forgot that. But this fairy lover, it's very much an Gael, say that fast, you got Argyll of Scotland. It's very much of the folklore, and it is very similar to Jack in the Green. So this fairy lover of the hawthorn, like Jack in the Green, is said to enchant temptation and debauchery that drives a woman into passionate frenzy, hence why he is called the love talker. Now, stories I've heard told of the love talker, he also, like the Aisling, arrives in dreams, and the love talker waiting also by a hawthorn tree for a beautiful woman to appear. So he appears in women's dreams, or he's there behind the hawthorn tree waiting for the woman to pass. And I should have a woman passing picture here, ready for his trickery and debauchery. Where is he? There he goes. Well, there's an artist's impression of him anyway. You might have seen that man around a few times. Several women have anyway. But there he is. No, is that the one? Yeah, that's it. That's what the debauchery is already happening on that one. So we're way ahead of the dance there. And it is really, isn't it? There's an infection from his trickery that arouses lust, and also that temptation of joining him in the mating dance, just like in that picture there. But these stories also tell of the man of men, bards of old, let's say, being skilled. The bards were skilled in this trickery, because after their bardic session, it would ensure they'd have the company in their guest bed, that they would have the woman's company, and some as I'm just imagining some story on that, or some bard that was brought in. I hope you don't mind me going over time. I'm just thinking of that story, because it was getting on towards September, this one, and there was a bard going door to door, and he was telling stories, begging in a way, and a couple, they felt sorry for him, so they let him in. And so I shouldn't be wasting time with this one. Anyway, I'll carry on with it. And as soon as he got in, he smelled this cake being baked. And the man of the household said, "Don't you dare, that's for us. Don't you dare touch that." And so anyway, they went to bed, and all three of them got in the bed together. And of course, the man was in the middle between his wife and this bard that was sharing the bed. But unfortunately, there was a storm, as there often is in September. And so the man had to rush out to sort out the barns, and a roof was falling off. Why the bard didn't get out, I don't know. But he left the two of them behind. And the woman was looking towards the barn and says, "Right, now's your chance." So he leaped out of bed and ate the cake. Anyway, that's that story. Anyway, I'll move on. But the debauchery side of things, the trickery of ensuring someone joins the bed during nightly hours. A bit like rock bands, isn't it? The rock bands and even the boy bands, they get the groupies. Same tradition, really, isn't it? So at sunrise, these trickster men, they're up, they're gone, they've left. And that leaves a longing with the women, such as a gentle lover, is a memory from the woman, is the gentle lover, and remembering the warmth that had entered into her, that somehow had taken away a longing. And there she was, he was gone. And she had this cold, longing darkness appear, just like the Aisling there with Egan. So after being left abandoned from such love, women and the men, they seek longingly for a love that is sustaining and will not be fleeting, doesn't disappear in the morning. So the Erin Gunconna, the Jean Connor, Gunconna, the Fey lover, may well be the Green Man. And he arrives here in the night of darkness, and with flickering lights of temptation, an invitation to debauchery that drives women into passionate frenzy. There's a woman in passionate frenzy. And the winds carry me like charging stallions, riding upon the breath of lavender's blending scent, to rest upon the post of your abode, watching you dream as your dreams in bed awaken the carnal desires within you. Hot flames from flowing blood's hearth in winter, every fearless touch undoing into abandonment, reveling in fearless presence within the forbidding. And then a trickster Jean Canac's poem, that was, and it's always cleverly worded and told to penetrate into the dreams of women, to arouse their lust. And a woman can never really be with this love talker. It's always disappearing, always gone before the light of the morning. The more she thinks and dreams of him, the more and more distant he seems to become. The earlier and earlier he seems to leave. But the more and more she yearns and wants him, unless by suddenly doing so, she discovers that she herself is actually the fairy lover. She is the fairy lover. A love talker, enchanted woman discovers that it's her own spirit that's driving the passion, the trust, the illumination, and her clarity of purpose through this love. And these are the stories that sometimes accompany the light and fire of Bridget, or another light angel. And men with Aislings enchanted and women with green men enchantment, they both can discover that it's their own heart that is the love talker, and not this desire, a debauched desire that they see. And any bard or storyteller present is only a voice, is a voice to arouse voices within that may be suppressed with any of us. And suppressed maybe due to our instinct for living as humans do. We're in a do as you're told culture, aren't we? There's a lot of that on Facebook right now. The enchantment of the love talker released within us can aid us to enjoy all that lovely life through our heart and through us. And this being all embracing, pure, whole, and very, very nourishing to us, it dissolves away our stress and our longing. And I believe it's the voices we share through our writing, through singing, through chanting, through our music, of course playing the harp, and through drumming, through playing these prayer bowls, through dance, through drawing, through painting, sculpture, craft, even in our problem solving, in our work, our engineering, and of course, in whatever services we provide for others. All that can be us being the blessed love talker, the Aisling, and the Green Man. It's all that charm that we can share. So to me, it's as if the dragon's fire ignites in every heart, and every dragon's tail is always umbilically connected to the heart of the one beautiful woman in the gathering fire. And it's the same beautiful woman that resides, courts, and judges at the point where our eye world, third eye world, and the rest of our world meets. So my wish is that may the guiding spirit of the Aisling, or what you now call the Green Man, be inspired to connect you, nourish you, rather than arouse lust and expectations, which only leads to loss and mournful longings. Be the real love-talking poets, my friends. And that is Aislings. I'm still going to tell you what's coming up, but that's why Aislings and Green Man. Let's see what you've got to say on that. Thanks for the session. There's still more to come. My sister just gifted me a book of the gargoyles. Let's see, we got saying that. Anyway, as I mentioned near the start of these sessions, that Rich Folklore sessions are brought to you through the support of you lovely Patreon subscribers, and that is such a wonderful help, and that's it. And it covers subscriptions and the costs for repairs, and do what in the way that I'm doing these sessions. And I'm doing little videos for the Patreon people, exclusive for them. I'm getting them up. I'm getting a couple or so each week anyway. But coming up, let's tell you what's coming up with the Nature Folklore sessions that's coming up, because we're leading up to Lunacy now. So we're going to have 4 Sundays on Lunacy themes. And if I can bring them up, 25th of July, bilberry time. Do I have some bilberries? Give me some bilberries, please. Anyway, bilberry and garland Sunday, that folklore. And this is creeping towards harvest time. So on that next Sunday, I'm going to talk about the lovely traditions of the time. A lot of them have faded away in the last 50 years. They're very much kind of sort of church related, and there's baby shows and dog shows and sports, and so it's sort of changed. But anyway, I'll talk more about that next week. 1st of August, say it's the first harvest folklore, and we used to bring people used to take their first loaves of bread up to the top of hills, but now we take potatoes, and it's first harvest gratitude time. And a request for you, I invite you to join live or send pre-recorded video clips of what Lunacy or Lammas or first harvest, what does it mean to you? And let your third eye wander away with that. And how do you celebrate Lunacy? And what do you feel that you're grateful for at that time? Now, during this traditional abundant time, I know it's been colder here up until this hot spell. And hotter everywhere else, but there must be something that you're very grateful for at this time. Certainly in 2 Sundays time anyway. Write it down, poems, stories, and let's share it on Nature Folklore here, and contact me with what you have in as far as advanced as you can. And we do broadcast in landscape here rather than the lollipop portrait. Reminder of that one. 8th of August. Now, this is something I'm pretty excited about. This is going to be over 2 weeks. 8th of August, we're going to start off with the Crom Dove legends, which are very much Lunacy. And here's someone sort of dressing up because, as you say, we do have horned creatures this time. And this is very relevant to Muxlech, which is a sort of tavern, Leitrim border time. But also, you might be familiar with this in Limerick, the Grange Circle, the big Grange Circle. That apparently was an image of a bull was on there once upon a time. Have I got something else about that here? What have I got here? And right next to it is where people do the offerings by that big stone that's on the Grange Circle. So that Crom Dove is often represented as a bull. And it's that bull, if we go back to Beltner time, that's the middle of Taurus. And so we enter this whole harvest growing from Taurus with that fertility. And of course, we had bulls in the Labyrinth thing, didn't we? Half man, half bull. And then the bull time, Lunacy, has come to the end. The harvest is here. So you got all these stories of the sacrificing of the bull. So that comes into it because you're harvesting the bull. So I'm going into that. But we've also Cromdove is a serpent as well. I'm going to go into all this. That's what I'm going to be doing on the 8th of August. And then the partner, Cronkruk. The Cronkruk, you might be familiar with the stone there. Some say that was the bull sacrificial stone. I'll be going into the Cronkruk legends, which are more underground, I think. But you've also got John Barleycorn stories, are very much like Cronkruk. So I'm going to go into that. As I say, we've got 4 weeks of Lunacy stuff coming up. So a lot of people say this is all devil worship, but no, it isn't. Folklore's all Lunacy reverence, and even the Cronkruk. So what else are you saying here? Let's see. That's what's coming up. Looking forward to seeing my green man now. She's off to the green man, who's doing some green things, I'm sure, like in the Sam Ashley coming in from Florida. Hope you catch the rest of this. This is the longest yet. I get longer. Aaron from Kildare, yes, he's back again. And Donna, good morning. No, I'm going right back to the beginning of the comments. Sorry, mouseless me. Very informative from Sharon. Thank you very much. Clay, we love talkers. Yes, very good, Kate. Definitely are. Everybody exercise that. Definitely. Being the love talkers. Thanks for the session. Wonderful. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I have really gone on this. It should be over 2 weeks this time, but I don't like separating this. We have, I sort of go on a long time about the Aisling, the male experience, and the green man, the female experience. So I think we do need to stick that together. So thanks again for the contributions by Tony Cookson and Jane Gilgan there. Beautiful. And if you're watching this as a saved archive broadcast, please keep your comments flowing, because I keep checking comments from time to time. Subscribe to the bells on YouTube and Facebook so you get reminded what's coming up in the next Sunday session. So please do enjoy a lovely week in the sun. Anyway, we're definitely going to have pleasant sun here. It's going to get warmer in this week. I don't know how much warmer. I'm glad to get the breeze. It's made doing this for you so comfortable outside here today. So it's been a joy, and I hope you've enjoyed it. So play well until next Sunday. That's all I got from me. Thanks very much. So bye everybody. Bye.